Transitions. Unless you're at the pointy end of the race, doing them perfectly isn't really an issue. But dithering and faffing in your transition, or worse, making mistakes, is going to do nothing for your triathlon goals. Luckily, getting your transitions right is something everyone can do. So we're here today with how to do your triathlon transitions. The first rule of transitions is not to rush. Transitions can feel frantic and stressful, and it feels like you're losing so much time. But the reality is a rushed transition where you get your heart rate sky high and you make mistakes, it's going to cost you far more time than it saves you. Your goal is to get through transition calmly and smoothly and to minimize the risk of mistakes. And we're here today with GTN's resident beginner. He's not so much of a beginner anymore. He has completed Challenge Roth, the biggest triathlon in the world, but that is literally his only triathlon. So he's done a total of 2 transitions in his life. So he's very much still a beginner, even though Quinn has completed the biggest triathlon in the world. In T1, you're going to go from this, your swim gear, to this, your bike gear. In most triathlons, this is going to happen right next to your bike. In the bigger triathlons where congestion might be an issue, you may need to use transition bags and a change tent, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. In most triathlons, you're just going to do this right next to your bike. So let's run through the steps in a normal, simple triathlon. As you exit the water, immediately remove your cap and swim goggles. This not only gives you a head start on the change, it also helps you see where you're going and find your bike in a busy T1. And if it's a wetsuit swim, you can immediately start stripping your wetsuit as you run up towards your bike. Pull it down off your arms so that it's all the way down and around your waist when you get to your bike. Okay, as you get to your bike, you're going to drop your cap and goggles onto your towel or into the box that's provided. Pay a little bit of attention to this if you want to get your goggles back, because a lot of people are going to be going through here and they could easily get lost. And then you're going to strip your wetsuit the rest of the way, taking it off your ankles and kicking it off your feet. Now, a little bit of preparation in this helps a lot. Earlier on in the day when you're applying your Vaseline and anti-chafe to wherever else you need it, save a little bit for your ankles, rub it around your ankles, and it makes removing the wetsuit a lot easier. Of course, if your triathlon's a non-wetsuit swim, this whole step is skipped. And then grab your helmet and clip it to your head. Now this is important. You have to grab your helmet and clip it before you touch your bike. This is not just for safety, it is a rule. Also, adjust your helmet now. Make sure it's tight and snug and all the straps are connected properly, because adjusting this later on when you're on the bike with one hand is a lot harder. And then you're going to put your shoes on. Now you can save the socks for T2. You don't really need socks on the bike, but if it's a longer triathlon, you may want the extra comfort of having socks on the bike. Either way, you're going to put your shoes on and then you're going to grab your bike, and all that's left to do is to run to the mountain line and mount your bike. Now, how you run to your mountain line and mount your bike is dependent on a few decisions that you're going to have made earlier in the day. Now you can either clip your shoes to your pedals like this before you get into the bike and then just slip your feet in whilst riding and off you go. Or you can put your shoes on in transition and hobble your way to that bike mount line. Now, if this is your first triathlon, or second in Quinn's case, we'd suggest you skip the flying mount and hobble your way to that bike mount line just for safety's sake. Like we said earlier, it's all about minimizing the risk of mistakes. And then be careful getting on your bike. There's going to be other people around you, so make sure you don't veer off to the left or right, and off you go for your bike ride. If your race has transition bags, it's much the same process, except you'll grab your bag before you go into a change tent, where you will empty out your helmet and your bike shoes from the bag, put your wetsuit after you've stripped it into the bag, put your helmet on and your bike shoes if you've chosen not to leave them on the bike, and then run to your bike and grab it before exiting transition. And before we go on, I'm going to quickly highlight some of the mistakes people do usually make in T1 so that you don't make them. Forgetting to remove their swim cap. Dropping or tossing their goggles, that'll be lost forever. Getting stuck in their wetsuit, you've got to practice removing it. crashing their bike before they're even on it. Practice running with your bike and hold the handlebar and saddle if you suck at it. Veering sideways when they mount their bike. Okay, now your bike is done and you're on to transition 2. In transition 2, you're going to go from this in your bike kit to this in your run kit. This is a far simpler transition with less room for error. It also happens much later in the race, so you're less frantic about a few seconds lost here or there. Dismount carefully and within your skill level. A flying dismount looks great and is fast, but getting it wrong is just plain dangerous and it's not for beginners. Beginners can, however, consider leaving their shoes clipped onto their bike when they get off. Removing your feet from the shoes whilst rolling is actually not too hard. Simply put your feet on top of the shoes for the last bit of the ride. Then, when you stop and get off, you're already barefoot, meaning you can run faster through T2. Practice this though. If you're uncomfortable leaning down and unfastening your shoes, it's just not worth the few seconds it saves. And you can do this without the flying dismount too. Dismount your bike and rack your bike carefully. Make sure it doesn't fall or obstruct others, or worse, get damaged. And then you can remove your helmet. Remember, don't do this until you've racked your bike. It's a rule. Then you're going to put your socks on if you're choosing to wear them only for the run, or they might already be on, and then your run shoes on. Grab your hat and maybe a nutrition bottle or a gel, and off you go for your run. Again, don't rush T2. While it can feel like valuable time has been lost, rushing T2 can just get your heart rate high. The change from biking to running is already jarring, and getting your heart rate high will just cost you time later on in the run. Awful transitions are not going to ruin your triathlon race, but it's well worth spending some time practicing them and thinking through your transitions so that you can decrease the risk of mistakes, take some of the pressure off, and help you enjoy your triathlon. We hope this video has helped you to enjoy your triathlon and have smoother transitions. If it has, hit that thumbs up button and remember to subscribe to GTN for all of your triathlon related content.